This episode of the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast is brought to you by Western Power Sports. WPS remains driven to provide innovative brands and products to its global network of dealers. The 2025 Street Catalog includes more than 1,000 new items that span across all product categories, and it can be viewed online or at your local dealer. New this year are industry-leading brands such as Cobra USA, Domino Racing, and Wild Ass Seat Cushions. Check out the Western Power Sports 2025 Street Catalog at WPS-INC.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast. I'm Greg Drevenstedt, Editor-in-Chief at Rider. I've got with me Kevin Duke. He's our Senior Editor at Rider and also the Editor-in-Chief at American Rider. How you doing, Duke?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy few weeks we've had, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure has. We've had press launches and video projects and various other kinds of travel. Daytona was in there. So let's back up a little bit. So about a month ago, you and I worked on a video project for Honda for the 50th anniversary of the Goldwing. We pitched them on a concept that basically, everybody knows that the Goldwing is the luxury touring, kind of gold standard. But Honda said, hey, the current model, which was launched in 2018, is the sportiest Goldwing yet, and they still want to kind of attract some of the younger buyers. And so we pitched them on a concept for a video that the title is Think You Know the Goldwing, Think Again, because the Goldwing is a lot sportier than most people realize. You can ride it in a much sportier fashion. So Duke and I got a couple of Goldwings. We got the brand new 2025 50th anniversary Goldwing in Eternal Gold. And we also had a 2024 standard Goldwing. So we had the Goldwing Tour anniversary model, and then we had the standard model without the trunk. It's now just called the Goldwing, but some people call it the Goldwing Bagger because it was like the F6B. So we had two bikes, and that video is now on YouTube. You can find it at youtube.com/Rider Magazine. And again, it's called Think You Know the Goldwing, Think Again. But Duke and I basically take these two Goldwings and we ride them in the canyons. We ride them on a closed course circuit, and we grind down their foot pegs quite a bit. So Duke, now I've ridden a lot of Goldwings and I've ridden them in pretty sporty fashion in the sense of going into some canyon roads and trying to, lean them over as far as I can. This was the first time you've done some of that kind of riding on a Goldwing?
Well, I've done some riding on Goldwings. This latest generation I hadn't. I'd only ridden at kind of towns and freeways. So this is my
Okay.
first time actually getting into the canyon roads and then the racetrack. And I think we did a pretty good job telling the story of connecting Honda's engineering prowess to the Goldwing. And hopefully that's going to resonate with some potential consumers who maybe just think of the Goldwing as an old guy's bike. And it's a lot more than that. And when we got the amazing benefit of taking it to Honda's test track and their winding road circuit, and we could really push the limits as far as we dared. And yeah, the bike just remained completely stable. The engine was just delicious, and it just seemed like it didn't make sense, and yet it made perfect sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I have been on racetracks together. Now, this is not officially a racetrack. It's a 4.5 mile road handling course that is at Honda's Proving Center up in the Mojave Desert. But you and I have been on racetracks together, and we're in leathers, and we're chasing each other on sport bikes at some press launch or something. But this is the first time we also had our leathers on, but to chase each other on a couple of touring bikes was a total hoot. I mean, it really was. Now, again, even though the Goldwing's 800 and something pounds, it handles really well. It's a big flat six engine, sits really low, so it really rolls through turns. And the double wishbone front end really helps the handling because when you get on the brakes and it's got these monster six piston front calipers, a pair of those, it doesn't dive into corners. And so really the cornering clearance is really the only limitation. I mean, we could just go over it, but you could even start to deck the engine guards, but it would stay nice and steady. And just, you can hear the peg scraping in the video and so forth. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very cool.
Yeah, it was interesting doing a video project like that because usually if we're riding a new bike, we're reviewing it, right?
Right.
This
Right.
wasn't a review. This was a story about the Goldwing and Honda, and I think we did a good job of telling that story.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, this is on YouTube. We'll have a link in this podcast. It's about a 7 minute video. We there's some of the other things that we do in addition to riding the Gold Wings. We go to Honda's American Honda Collection Hall. So in their Torrance, California headquarters, they've got a small museum that shows a lot of their pretty much their full product range. It goes from everything from their little generators and outboards to cars, motorcycles. It's got race cars and a few race bikes, and we walk through there and really see the breadth of Honda's kind of not just history but engineering prowess, because that's really what they've been known for a long time. And then we also had an opportunity, also at Honda's Torrance campus, to go to something called Cars, Motorcycles, and Coffee, which is something Honda does every other month. But they basically have a theme. They bring a bunch of Honda enthusiasts, both car enthusiasts and motorcycle enthusiasts, to their campus. And this was the theme was rugged, so they had some of their off-road bikes and off-road race machines, and there were like 2,500 people there, and so it was great. It was a really cool Sunday morning event and or Saturday morning event. But you met a fellow who had a first year Honda GL 1000 Goldwing that he brought to this event, and we got to you got to ride it. I didn't get to ride it, but we got to walk around it. It was a really beautiful bike, but also to see the 1975 Goldwing right next to the 2025 Goldwing and really see how far it's come was pretty cool.
50 years, that's some kind of legacy Honda's built with the Goldwing. I mean, it really ha is the gold standard of touring. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, and it's like I say, it's not that many motorcycles that I can think of. I mean, the air-cooled Sportster went almost 60 years as a model line, but to have a model line go for 5 decades is pretty rare. There aren't many motorcycles that I can think of that have done that. So we shot this video, and then we launched it, and then a couple weeks later, I went to the Barber Motorsports Park, basically to their vintage. They've got the museum there, the Vintage Motorsports Museum, and the racetrack, the Motorsports Park. Honda invited us there. They had the 2025 Goldwing, and they also had yet another teal colored 1975 GL 1000. And we got to ride both bikes on the track for a couple of laps. And so I got a chance to ride the GL 1000 first for a couple of laps, and then the 2025 Goldwing, which felt very comfortable because we had already done that on this winding road course. But it was really cool. I'd never ridden a first year Goldwing. I know you only got to ride it kind of back and forth in a parking lot, but to be able to accelerate really hard, to lean into some corners, you could really feel the DNA between the two of them, the smoothness of the engine, the engine response and so forth. Now, of course, the first generation Goldwing was a naked bike, and it was a kind of a muscle bike when it came out, and it didn't have the fairing and the saddlebags and all that, but it was very cool to be able to ride both of those back to back. So.
Well, when I wrote it, I thought I'd have a one up on you that, oh, I got to ride the original Goldwing, you didn't. And then a couple of weeks later, you get to ride original Goldwing on Barber Motorsports Park track.
Yeah, yeah, that was very cool. I've actually never ridden that track before. I've been to Barber a couple of times, but never had an opportunity to ride on the track. So, again, not the sort of motorcycles you would expect to ride on a race course, Moto America race course. But yeah, it was very cool. And so we went from Birmingham after riding on the track. The next day we left, and we had a contingent of 2025 Goldwings as basically a press ride where we took 2 days and rode from Birmingham to Daytona. We spent the night in Apalachicola on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And it was, kind of rolling hills and country roads. And it was a very nice, kind of chill, mellow ride. But it was great. It just was a very comfortable. It was really the way that people ride Goldwings, is that we had our Apple CarPlay and communicators and could listen to our music and yeah, it was a great ride. And then we ended up at Daytona on the first opening day, February 28th. That was a Friday, was the opening day of Bike Week. And we end our 2 day ride by going down Main Street with our Goldwings. And as you know, in Main Street during Bike Week, it's 4 or 5 blocks, and it's just nothing but bikes and people, and it's motorcycle only traffic, and it's a complete scene. And we got to ride, as the sun was setting, we got to ride right down Main Street. The timing was perfect. So.
It's funny you were talking about your ride to Daytona as being peaceful, and then you're talking about Main Street, which is anything but peaceful.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the traffic during Daytona, and especially on Main Street, it's nothing but music coming out of bars and restaurants, and of course a lot of folks in the V-twin world have these incredibly loud audio systems that are all competing with each other. And so, yeah, it was chaos. So, yeah, yeah. So the reason that we rode to Daytona on the Gold Wings is Honda had a big activation or display. So at the Speedway, which is where the races take place, Daytona 200 and Supercross and so forth, and some of the flat track, basically out in the parking lot, out between the Speedway and International Speedway Boulevard, all the manufacturers, they have their demo fleets. There are various vendors that display, various kinds of products or custom bikes or whatever. Harley has an absolutely huge footprint there.
Yes.
But Honda had a big display that was actually really cool because it was kind of a mini museum. They had one bike from each of the generations of the Goldwing. So there was the GL 1000, there was the GL 1100, the GL 1200, the GL 1500, the first GL 1800, which came out in 2001, and then the current generation GL 1800, which came out in 2018. So they had one of each of those. And Lee Edmonds, who used to be marketing executive at Honda, and Matthew Miles, who's a former editor at Cycle World, they helped put together a 50th anniversary Goldwing book, which people who buy a 50th anniversary Goldwing get this book. Writer's former editor Mark Tuttle has a chapter in there. Jamie Elvidge, a former writer staffer, has got multiple chapters in there. It's a really beautiful book. But Matthew and Lee gave basically presentations throughout Bike Week, basically walking people through the history of the Goldwing. And as they put this book together, they uncovered some history that the story hadn't been told quite right in the past. For example, there's when the Goldwing was developed, there was a project called the M1 prototype, or the King of Kings, where there was a motorcycle that was I think a 1500cc flat six. And
Yeah.
the way that I've read the history, and the history had been told up to this point, was that was kind of this, blue sky prototype. But then for when they went to production, they went to the flat four 999cc GL 1000. But apparently those two projects were not related. They were not connected. So I don't remember the name of the large project leader for the GL 1000, but they talked to each other, but it was not like one led to the other. I think there was some communication, but one was really kind of a skunk works, hey, what can we do sort of thing. And the GL 1000 was really developed to be a touring motorcycle because the CB 700 was an inline four. It was more about performance, but then the Kawasaki
Z1.
Z1 came out, so it was 903 cc's, had
Yeah.
more acceleration, and it beat the CB 750. So Honda wanted to beat the Z1, but also knew that the touring market was starting to take off. So that's why they didn't develop an inline four that was 1,000 cc's. They did this flat four because it was a much smoother engine configuration. They also gave it shaft drive, so it's a much heavier bike than a performance-oriented bike would be, yet it still had a lot of performance for its day, because I don't think it was the first time Honda had built a motorcycle that size, or any of the Japanese
Hmm.
manufacturers had not built 1,000cc, had not built a liter bike yet. So,
And amazing, at that time, they had built a six-cylinder version, and then what, 30 years later, 20 years later, they come out with a six-cylinder
right,
Goldwing.
right,
They had to
exactly,
get the
exactly.
R&D.
So yeah, so that was interesting to kind of find, like, basically they had gone back and gone through some archives and some interviews and so forth, and found out that those two projects were kind of operating simultaneously but independently. And there was some communication, but it wasn't that the M1, what they called the kind of King of Kings prototype, didn't lead to the GL 1000. It just, so anyway, it was fascinating. It was really cool to see the bikes there on these beautiful displays. And also, it was really cool because right next to the 50th anniversary Goldwing, which was, of course, on display in the Eternal Gold Hero color, which is a little bit controversial because it's got these brown panels on the saddlebags and some brown accents. There was a GL 1000, when the GL 1500 came out in 1988, they had a version of this paint job, and it actually had kind of wood paneling, and so very kind of old, makes you think of an old, family station wagon or something like that. So some people, it's kind of a polarizing paint job, or paint schemes. People either kind of love it or hate it. I think it looks great because the gold is really cool. And what's interesting is to give the brown panels on the saddlebags some texture. There are these little tiny Goldwing logos, and so it kind of gives it this textured sort of feel to it. So anyway, but the Japanese artist Mikado Endo, who many people may know, he is pretty famous for doing these very detailed and intricate paintings of motorcycles, but he uses India ink and chopsticks. And so he uses the India ink in its pure form. He sort of dilutes it and sort of as like almost like watercolors. And so he was there doing a India ink, painting with chopsticks of the 50th anniversary Goldwing. So yeah, it was very cool. So
I've seen his paintings, and to imagine that somebody did that with chopsticks just doesn't make
yeah,
sense to the brain. It's
yeah,
fascinating how he is so artistic with chopsticks.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I was there the first weekend. We got to with Honda. We got to do a little bit of a behind the scenes visit in their Supercross pit garage. Now, unfortunately, the Jet and what's Jet's brother's name? The two Lawrence brothers from Australia. They're kind of
Hunter.
top racers.
Yeah.
What's his Jet's brother's name?
Hunter.
Hunter, yeah. Both of them, I think, were injured, so they weren't competing. And it was Chase. What's Chase last name? God, I'm so bad with racers' names. So, anyway, there was only one racer representing Honda at the Supercross, but we got to do a track walk. So Ricky Carmichael had designed this very cool Supercross track, and I even had a sand section that was sand directly from Daytona Beach. And
Yeah.
we got to walk the track, and it's pretty amazing to physically try to walk up the face of one of these jumps, a double or triple jump. I mean, it's like, you almost can't even climb up it. And to think that people hit that at full speed on a motorcycle and jump over is pretty amazing. I'm not a motocross rider, so I'm just totally in awe of that. So yeah.
When you see it on TV or from the stands, it looks like, oh yeah, you could do
Yeah.
that. But if you're actually on the track, it's
Yeah.
mind blowing that these are, 40 of these obstacles every lap around the
Yeah.
track they got to overcome.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing to see it. And it was a long track that kind of spreads out in front of the grandstands of the speedway. And Ken Roxon had a great ride. He came from behind and won the 450 race main for Suzuki. And then so yeah, then that was Saturday. I got to see the Honda display. I got to watch the Supercross races, and then Sunday morning I flew home, and then you flew into Daytona on Monday morning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, dropped right into the mayhem. It's always good to get to Bike Week because it's the kickoff of a riding season, and
Yeah,
everybody who is there is all happy just to be on or around motorcycles. And Daytona, the Bike Week is it's kind of evolved, and there's a lot of diversity there, different ethnicities, different ages, and different kinds of bikes. Harleys are, of course, most of the
sure.
bikes that you see. But you also see Gold Wings and Indians and Japanese sport bikes and KTMs. It's really broadened its base of who the traditional buyer used to be.
Yeah. I think a lot of people want to be around other motorcyclists. And so there's a lot of different, niches or subcultures or segments of motorcycling that do come together. There are some people that want to spend their entire time at Daytona on Main Street or near there and just be part of the party.
Yeah.
Um, there are people that want to go to the Speedway and demo as many bikes as you can because all the major manufacturers are there. So you can go ride new Harleys and new BMWs and new Hondas and so forth. There are people who want to watch the races. There are Supercross races. There's the Daytona 200. There's
King of
there's
the
American
Baggers.
Flat Track, and then there's King of the Baggers. So I saw the Supercross races. What kind of racing did you see?
Yeah, I went to the flat track races. The track was really rough, it was really hard to navigate without crashing. There was a few nasty crashes, but Briar Bauman, who won the championship a couple of years ago for Indian,
Yeah,
he's now racing for Harley Davidson the old XG 750, which it's been out of production for I don't know 5, 6 years.
yeah,
But where they had brought it to before now, it's still very raceable. And now with Indians FTR 750 being not allowed anymore, it have to be production-based engines, it's really opened things up. So Breyer on that old XG, he led most of the first night, and it wasn't till the end that Dallas Daniels on a Yamaha passed him. And then on Friday, Breyer also led for a good amount, or some of it at least. But yeah, the Yamaha of Dallas Daniels, he ended up bagging a pair of wins. But that was Friday, and Friday also at the Speedway was, the sport bikes. I was most interested in the King of the Baggers. I
right.
love that series. Those things shouldn't be on a racetrack, except they are wonderful to see, and they're so fast. They're only a couple seconds slower than a super bike, which
Yeah,
you look at those massive things and it's like, no, that would be impossible. And then Super Hooligan, that was a interesting one because the Arch Motorcycle, the company founded by Keanu Reeves and his partner Gard Hollinger, they had this new bike there. It's like a 2-liter air oil-cooled V-twin of their own design. Well, they had some support from Suter Engineering in Europe. And
Okay.
so there was a brand new
Wow.
engine on the racetrack, and I don't know how they work out the balance of power, but this was 2 liters, so it's a massive thing. But some teething problems, and then in the second race, they ended up finishing seventh place, which is pretty good. I think there was nearly 30 entries, so to get
Wow.
seventh on a brand new bike, I'd say that's a pretty good job.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So Super Hooligans, I know when it first started was kind of a run but what you brung series, but now it's like almost even like King of the Baggers. It's really starting to become get these major manufacturers get involved and a lot of money is getting and flowing into these series. So what are the kind of bikes that run in that series? I mean, you mentioned the Arch and so forth, but
Well, the dominating one is Harley Davidson's Pan America. When, a couple years ago, when they first let him race against Indian's FTR 1200s, they had to have the Sportster airbox in it, which kind of choked it a bit to give a
yeah.
balance of power compared to a less high-tech engine. But now this year, Indian has killed off the FTR 1200, so they're not even racing that anymore. So Harley Davidson Pan Americas are the bike to be on right now, but there are a whole bunch of other manufacturers in that class. Almost the only thing, the rules has to be a high handlebar above the triple clamps
Okay.
and no fairing.
Okay.
So, in addition to the Pan Americas, there's KTM Dukes, Ducati. I can't remember which model, Ducati, and let's see, Energica on the electric bike race last
Really?
year at
Wow.
Daytona. But it's kind of cool because it's instead of a cookie cutter like 600 cc and it has to be
Yeah.
this size and stuff. It's kind of like, well, maybe this one will fit, and they let them throw it in until they gotta address the balance of power.
And so what's the circuit look like? What sort of surface and what sort of circuit, are they on?
Well, at Daytona, that's it's all just pavement on the infield road course, and they use the banking. So they were
Okay.
getting 170 some miles an hour on these naked
Wow. Wow.
sport bikes,
Hang on
and
tight.
on the King of the Baggers, they were getting over 183 miles an hour.
Wow.
So it's stunning to see these things lumbering past, and it's like, is that speed? Is this in fast forward motion?
Yeah, yeah. Well, also during Bike Week, that's when Harley Davidson announced and unveiled their $110,000
Mm.
CVO Road Glide RR. May not have gotten that in the right order, but basically a near I don't know if it's necessarily nearly race spec, but a super high-end limited production King of the Baggers inspired version of their Road Glide. So,
And I got to take it for a short ride.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the Harley Davidson's 131 cubic inch crate engine Screaming Eagle thing, and so that's kind of like easy to drop in there. The
Yeah.
most interesting bits as far as relation to the race bikes are like Olean's top superbike spec forks, Brembo's I can't remember FGM, some kind of monoblock calipers. It's
Yeah.
like super high end stuff. And the tastiest treat to me is the swing arm. They carve it out of it's the same one they use on the race bikes. They start with a 220-pound brick of aluminum and they whittle it away through CNC machining until it's 18 pounds, I think. And it
Wow.
all looks like a an organic flow of cutouts and stuff. It's really cool piece to add to a production bike, but yeah, the things, of course, 131 cubic inches, they say 150 horsepower, and
Yeah.
yes, it's fast, it's faster. Also rode back to back the 121 cubic inch Road Glide ST, CVO ST.
Okay.
And compared to that, yeah, the RR has a lot more power. It'll pull up the front end, and it's all the RR also has a fair bit more lean angle. I was following Paul James, our buddy at Harley Davidson. He was on the 121 ahead of me, and he's decking the floorboards through a corner, and I'm like, I still got room.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
I told them they should make a production version with the taller seat height so that you can jack the thing up
Yeah,
and get it leaned over. The
right.
chassis, the frame is good. It's the same
Yeah,
frame in both bikes. So
right.
yeah, just give us a little bit more lean angle. I think we'll be having more fun on the Harleys.
So where did you find a corner in Daytona?
Right next to the airport,
Oh, okay.
was this I don't know, maybe four corners,
Yeah.
and Paul James, he knows what we like, and so we wrote it, and we turned around, we wrote it again, and we did it again and again, and
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's good. That's the one challenge with Daytona is weather's typically good. It's what is it? It's early March and you're in Florida and I know you got a little bit of rain, but it's typically pretty mild. It's not too hot and humid like it is in the summertime. But you really got to hunt for some good riding in that area because it's typically flat. There's not any land masses to go around except water, so most of the roads are pretty straight. And if there's a corner, it tends to be like a 90-degree corner. So
yeah. Yeah, it's not the greatest place to lean bikes over for twisty roads or anything,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you can ride on the beach. And coming from California, they don't want you on the beach at all. And
yeah.
in Florida, you pay $5 or whatever, and you get to roll right out there, and it's really cool. Like you're not bending horizons or anything, but it's a cool experience to ride on the beach.
Well, I mean, decades ago they used to race bikes at Daytona on the beach, and but it's most people would be like, I don't want to ride on soft sand because sand is really tricky, but it's really hard packed sand,
Yeah.
right? It feels pretty sure.
There is no hesitation about, the California sand where the front end
Yeah,
wants to go dance everywhere. No, this is fine. And yeah, had a blast. Had the Harley Lowrider S on there, along with the Michelin rep on a Honda Goldwing,
nice.
testing their new rain tires in a little bit of splashy water and sand. And yeah,
Oh,
it's
good,
just a
good.
really novel treat for
Yeah.
me.
Well, one thing I didn't get to see at Daytona, which I know is always a highlight, is going to some bike shows. And I know our friends over at V Twin Visionary had a few shows. You went to see some of those. Tell us about some of the bike shows you saw.
There was such a broad range of things. There's like a Destination Daytona, they had bike shows, and there was some of those big wheel baggers and that kind of stuff, which might be getting played out, but they still look pretty amazing. So
Yeah,
buying or building them. And then I went to that Giuseppe's Steel City Pizza where it was just a vintage chopper thing. So there was a bunch of choppers and then just plain old vintage bikes, and lots of them look kind of cruddy, and
yeah,
I like that because they're riders, right? It's not just some trailer queen that gets uncovered
yeah,
for the two bike shows a year gets entered. It's These are real machines that are ridden on the roads, and all kinds of different bikes, right? Harleys, of course, but there's
yeah.
Triumphs and Yamahas and all kinds of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, back in early February, I went to here in Ventura at the fairgrounds every year. They have the David Mann Chopper Fest, which sad to confess that I've never been to until this year. And yeah, it was great. It's the same sort of deal. I mean, there are definitely some high-end show bikes, but there's a lot of guys that ride their choppers to Ventura from mostly LA, probably. And that's probably not a comfortable ride for a lot of those choppers and ride them and park them and have them on display. And so, yeah, it's a whole lot of old school stuff, pinheads and knuckleheads and all kinds of stuff. It was very cool, wide range of bikes. So yeah, that was the one thing I missed is not being able to go to some of the bike shows. Like I said, I know the V-Twin Visionary had their shows there at the Harley Davidson display area, and they had some cool performance. But I saw photos that you took or friends of ours took, and we posted and so forth. But yeah, that's the thing is a lot of the custom bikes are really kind of what people want to show them off. They're at Daytona. There is a look at me sort of thing, with the styles of bikes and so forth, and even the sport bikes or whatever. I mean, a lot of people are there to get some attention, and yeah, it's great. Good for them.
And even if that's not your thing, big
Yeah,
wheel baggers or sport bikes or whatever, you got to admire the dedication to motorcycling that these people put into their motorcycles, right? That
yeah.
they are investing good portions of their lives and their spare money or whatever to make bikes be special to them, and all kinds of different things. And I love it.
Well, it's funny because we're both shooting content, photos and video and posting on social media and so forth. And so when I was there for Honda, we were staying at the Hard Rock Hotel and I happened to walk outside. It was Sunday morning. I had a little bit of time before I was going to go to the airport. So I was like, oh, let me walk down to Main Street. Well, Main Street at like 8:30 in the morning is completely rolled up. There's everything's closed. You can even cars can drive on it. And there's like maybe a couple of bikes because people that want to post up early to get parking because parking is highly coveted on Main Street.
Yeah.
But when I was walking back, I'd seen a really nice performance bagger parked right in front of the hotel and kind of the right by in front of the valet station, and it had all of its bodywork was carbon fiber, and it had a lot of gold anodized billet parts everywhere, a bunch of Kraus Moto stuff, had the Olean suspension and it had the Brembo brakes and all that. This guy has, I mean, he could have six figures in his bike, and he just happened to be when I'd seen it when I walked out. I was walking back, he was just rolling it out and just started up, and I took this 20-second video just walking around listening. You can hear the engine, which sounded really kind of you know rough, because it's probably really hopped up. And
Yeah.
just this little walk around. He's got this really bright LED headlights and so forth. And that thing went supernova. I mean, it just tons of people, it got shared and liked and so forth because people want to see the extreme stuff. That's really whether it's paint jobs, whether it's chrome, whether it's big wheel baggers, whether it's audio systems, whether I mean any of it. People want to see some of the most extreme stuff. So you can ride any bike to Daytona, but that's what a lot of people want is the stuff that gets attention. So yeah.
And that's one thing I came away from Daytona with this year was the impression that there's a bunch of people out there who just want attention, whether it's sport bikes with open pipes and bah, bah,
Yeah.
bah, 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 bah,
Yeah.
or the baggers with 7,000 watt stereos or
Right.
flashing lights or whatever. There's a whole bunch of people that are just dying for attention and
Yeah.
doing it on a motorcycle of all kinds.
Right.
Why not?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great. I hadn't been to Daytona in quite a while. I don't know you've been more recently, but yeah, it was great conditions, good weather. It was nice to be able to ride there on the Gold Wings. That was fun. The interesting thing is because I used to live in Florida, we rode through some parts of Florida that I was familiar with and hadn't seen since I was in either high school or college. And so it was a little bit of a trip down memory lane. But then, yeah, like I said, I do remember that Florida is a place that, as a motorcyclist, I do feel very fortunate to live in California because of the mountains that we have. And when you have mountains, you have roads that go through the mountains and through the canyons and so forth. So yeah, there's a big scene at Daytona, but the riding itself is not really it's that's why I think a lot of people want to watch the races and go to the demos and hang out at Main Street and go to bike shows because whereas if you go to a Americade in Lake George, that's basically in the Adirondacks and right next to Vermont. A lot of people want to spend their day out riding because it's really good roads and very scenic and so forth. So yeah, it's a different scene. But like you say, it's the beginning of the riding season, beginning of the race season for a lot of these series. Really kicks things off for Moto American, King of the King of the Baggers, and AFT and a lot of that stuff. And well, it doesn't kick off the Supercross season. It's pretty late in the Supercross season. That starts in early January, but it was cool nonetheless.
Definitely the kickoff to riding season. And compared with last year, the attendance in Daytona seemed about the same.
Okay.
All the hotels sold out during the weekends, midweek, maybe not so much.
Okay.
But I think 412,000, I saw some report from
Wow.
Daytona Beach. So
Sure.
that's a lot of people coming to ride their motorcycles. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Well, glad we could catch up on all the stuff we got going on. We'll have to do another episode soon because I know you and I both have been riding some new bikes lately. I just got back a couple days ago from Portugal where I rode the Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS. Both riding days on the street and track were in the rain, so that was interesting.
mhm.
But it was an interesting test case. You
Jealous.
rode. Were you Spain or Portugal for the other Triumph Sport Tiger Sport 800? Where were you?
That was in Portugal.
Okay.
Followed that up with Indian motorcycles in Henderson, Nevada, near Las Vegas, and then Harley Davidson in Austin, Texas. So, yeah, a lot of good content. We're coming up, gonna get posted on Rider Magazine and ridermagazine.com.
Yeah. All right. And AmericanWriter.com and even WomanWriter.com. We've got it, whatever channel. So yeah, it's been good catching up. We'll have another episode soon. We'll talk more about these new bikes because there's been a lot of new stuff for 2025. It's this is the busy time of year for us in terms of testing bikes and riding bikes. I've got the 2025 Honda Rebel 1100 DCT SE in my garage. I've got a Suzuki V-Strom 800, which is not necessarily new. It came out a couple of years ago, but I haven't spent much time on the middleweight V-Strom, so I look forward to riding that one. Let's see, what did I was riding the Suzuki GSX S1000 GX Plus. I rode that out to Las Vegas for AIM Expo, and so that was a good ride through Death Valley. So yeah, it's we'll have a lot to talk about next time. So
Congratulations, by the way, on getting that Suzuki name out without stumbling on
I know.
trouble
Yeah, I typically just
pronouncing.
call it the GX Plus or something. So yeah, it's definitely a mouthful.
But that's
So
one of my favorite Suzukis in modern days. So yeah, I'm sure you had fun on it too.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. As far as a sport touring bike goes, yeah, very comfortable, very smooth, very fast. And it's got electronic suspension, semi-active suspension, which bikes that have those, if you anybody listening has not experienced that, if you can go on a demo ride or if you considering some bikes, it will really change your riding experience to be on a semi-active suspension motorcycle. And the Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS I just rode had the latest generation Olean Smart SE3 suspension, which is
Ooh.
even on a whole other level in terms of its
Wow.
spool valve technology and how fast the sensors and processors work. It's up to 7 times faster in its response to real-time conditions. And anyway, I'll go into all that next time because it was great. And riding in the rain was probably a really good way to test that because it was an environment in which things are not ideal. And so to have the chassis be stable or something like that in low traction conditions is really helpful in terms of
We're a long way away from hardtail shovelheads, aren't we?
exactly. So all right, well, let's wrap this one up. Thanks for listening, everybody, for the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast. I'm Greg Drevenstead with Kevin Duke. Thanks for listening. Keep the road upside down.
See you.
If you've enjoyed listening to the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast, please subscribe, leave us a positive rating, and tell your friends. We also encourage you to visit ridermagazine.com, where you can get the latest in motorcycle news and reviews and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You can also subscribe to print and digital editions of Rider Magazine, which is published 12 times a year. Thanks again for listening.